Imagine this. You walk into your parents' home expecting warmth, love, and the kind of family bonding that makes you feel like everything is right in the world. But instead, you're met with a scene that makes your heart sink. Your daughter, your precious child, is scrubbing the floor, her little hands red and raw, while your sister's kids are laughing and playing in the next room, carefree and untouched. The injustice of it all hits you like a punch to the gut. How could this happen? How could your own parents treat your daughter like a servant while your sister's children are treated like royalty? This is my story, a story of favoritism, heartbreak, and ultimately redemption. Stick around because this is one journey you won't want to miss. Family. It's supposed to be our safe haven, the place where we're loved unconditionally, where we're treated equally, and where we find solace in the chaos of life. But what happens when family becomes the source of that chaos? What happens when the people who are supposed to love and protect you the most end up causing you the deepest pain? That's exactly what I faced when I realized that my parents were treating my daughter like a servant, while my sister's kids were given the royal treatment. This isn't just a story about favoritism. It's a story about breaking cycles, standing up for what's right, and finding the strength to protect the ones you love, even when it means going against the very people who raised you. So, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into this emotional roller coaster together. And hey, if you've ever felt like the black sheep of your family or struggled with favoritism, this one's for you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to hear your stories too. To understand how we got here, we need to rewind a bit. Growing up, my sister and I were always treated differently. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Everything she did was celebrated, while I felt like I was constantly fighting for scraps of attention. It wasn't that my parents were cruel or neglectful, they just had a clear favorite, and it was obvious to everyone, including me. Fast forward to adulthood, and not much had changed. My sister's life was always the topic of conversation at family gatherings. Her career, her kids, her perfect little world. It was all anyone wanted to talk about. Meanwhile, I was the one who had taken a different path. I had chosen to prioritize my family over my career, and while I didn't regret it, I often felt like my choices were seen as less impressive, less worthy of praise. But none of that mattered to me as much as my daughter did. She was my world, my everything, and I made a promise to myself that she would never feel the way I did growing up, like she was second best, like she didn't matter. Little did I know that promise would be put to the test in the most heartbreaking way. It was a typical family gathering at my parents' house. My sister and her kids were there, along with my husband, my daughter, and me. At first, everything seemed normal. The kids were playing together, the adults were catching up, and the house was filled with the usual chatter and laughter. But as the day went on, I started to notice something off. My daughter, who was only 8 at the time, was being asked to do things that the other kids weren't. Can you help Grandma set the table? Can you clean up the toys in the living room? Can you fetch this? Can you carry that? At first, I thought it was just harmless requests. After all, kids should help out, right? But then I noticed that my sister's kids weren't being asked to do anything. They were playing video games, running around the backyard, and generally having the time of their lives, while my daughter was running back and forth, trying to keep up with all the tasks she was being given. At first, I tried to brush it off. Maybe my parents just thought she was more responsible. Maybe they didn't realize how much they were asking of her. But as the day went on, it became impossible to ignore. My daughter was being treated like a servant, while my sister's kids were being treated like kids. The final straw came when I walked into the kitchen and saw my daughter standing on a stool, washing dishes that were piled high in the sink. Her little hands were red from the hot water, and she looked exhausted. Meanwhile, my sister's kids were in the living room, laughing and playing with their new toys. I felt a surge of anger and heartbreak all at once. How could my parents do this? How could they treat my daughter like she was less than? I knew I had to say something, but I also knew that confronting them wouldn't be easy. This was my family, after all. These were the people who had raised me, who had shaped me into the person I was today. But at that moment, I realized that I had to put my daughter first. no matter what. I took a deep breath and walked into the living room, where my parents were sitting with my sister. "Can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. They looked up, surprised by the seriousness in my tone. "What's wrong?" my mom asked, her brow furrowed. "It's about how you're treating my daughter," I said, my voice trembling. "She's been running around all day, doing chores and helping out, while my sister's kids haven't lifted a finger. It's not fair, and it's not right." There was a long, uncomfortable silence. My sister looked down at her hands, avoiding my gaze, while my parents exchanged a glance. Finally, my dad spoke up. "We're just trying to teach her responsibility," he said, his tone defensive. "There's nothing wrong with that." "There's a difference between teaching responsibility and treating her like a servant," I shot back, my anger rising. "She's 8 years old. She should be playing and having fun, not scrubbing floors and washing dishes while everyone else gets to relax." My mom sighed, her expression softening. "We didn't mean to hurt her," she said quietly. We didn't realize how it looked." "Well, it looks like favoritism," I said, my voice breaking. "And it's not just about today. It's about how you've always treated my sister and me differently, and now you're doing the same thing to our kids. I won't let my daughter grow up feeling like she's less than, like she doesn't matter. I won't let her go through what I went through." The room fell silent again, the weight of my words hanging in the air. My parents looked stunned, as if they had never considered how their actions might be affecting me or my daughter. My sister still wouldn't meet my eyes, and I could see the guilt written all over her face. That conversation was a turning point, not just for me, but for my entire family. It wasn't easy, and there were a lot of tears, a lot of difficult conversations, and a lot of soul-searching. But in the end, it was worth it. My parents apologized to me and to my daughter, and they made a conscious effort to treat all the grandchildren equally from that day forward. As for my sister, we had a long talk about the dynamics of our relationship and how it had affected both of us. It wasn't easy to confront the past, but it was necessary if we were going to move forward as a family. And my daughter? She's thriving. She's happy, confident, and knows that she's loved and valued, not just by me, but by her grandparents and her aunt as well. She's no longer the little girl who was asked to do all the work while the other kids played. She's just a kid, free to be herself, free to enjoy her childhood. This experience taught me a lot about family, about love, and about standing up for what's right. It's not easy to confront the people you love, especially when it comes to something as deeply ingrained as favoritism, but sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you have to be the one to break the cycle, to stand up and say, "This isn't okay." If you've ever been in a similar situation, I want you to know that you're not alone. It's hard, but it's worth it. And if you're a parent, I hope this story reminds you of the importance of treating all your children and grandchildren equally. They deserve nothing less. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories and experiences. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Remember, you are enough and you are loved.